digest your word, Father, that it may seed up within us and bring forth a harvest. So, I told y'all that, you know, I thought I was done with the law series. Um, I thought I thought I was done with the law series, uh, and it turns out, y'all, I'm done with the law series. But guess what we starting today? The Grace series. The Grace series. So, we're going to start this Grace series. And I'm going to tell y'all the same thing that I said last time. Now, me, this is like maybe a teaching or two. One of the things that I'm going to try to do, y'all, just so y'all know and understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. One of the things that I want to do and I always try to exemplify. I don't ask somebody to do something before I show them me doing it. I want you to see me doing it. One of those things that we're going to try to do is begin to, I'm going to teach in 30 minutes. When I get to 30 minutes, if I'm not at a good stopping point, I'm going to get to a good stopping point, okay? And because there's always next Shabbat and next Shabbat, and we'll be able to talk some more. But I want us to be able to, I don't want to lose people's attention. I don't want people to start wandering off and thinking about all other sorts of things. And we want to just be as efficient as we can with our time. And I believe that there's a lot of information that I can get out in this 30 minutes. But with that said, I know that this is more than one teaching. Okay, so I know that for sure. But as I said, we're starting today the Grace series. I do believe that this, on the tails of the Law series, is going to help us understand and put together these two things. Because quite often, they are pit against each other. Just like when we went through the Law series and I talked about, some people like to look at it from the perspective of the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, and we spent a lot of time showing that is not how we should approach this thing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at grace. Grace is not either or with law, with obedience to law. We know that. We're here because we know that. But I want to give you some tools for understanding grace a little bit better. Because as I begin to dig into this thing, one of the first things that hit me was we don't understand grace. That's one of the first things that hit me. So I'm going to need y'all's help. I'm going to need y'all to be looking up some stuff. I'm going to need y'all to be shouting back at me some information because this is going to be a walkthrough for all of us. All right, so the first question I want to answer is, what is grace? What is grace? All right, so benchmark, y'all know what benchmarks is, right? We're at the beginning. So this is our start of lesson benchmark. All right, start of lesson benchmark is, I want y'all to do this for me. Call out synonyms of grace. Anybody know a synonym for grace? Let me hear some. I heard faith. I heard mercy. I heard mercy. Favor. I'm sorry. Favor, mercy. What else? Synonyms for grace. Favor and mercy is what I got so far. Huh? Pardon. Okay. Pardon. Pardon. Understanding. Okay. Yeah. I get it. What else? Huh? Loving kindness. What did you say, Ephraim? Class, like classy, like graceful, elegance. Okay, now we're into the other definition of grace. Compassion? Compassion. Okay, compassion. Billy, you said something. What'd you say? Patience. Okay, patience. All right. All right. All right. So now let's call out some antonyms for grace. What are some antonyms? Everybody know what an antonym is, right? Opposite. Huh? Impatience. Okay. Judgment. Being judgy. Okay. Grudge holding. Holding grudges. Condemnation. Stiffness. Petty. By the rule. By the rules. Salty. All right. All right. All right. All right. So more on that later. More on that later. Somebody help me with my coon over here. They might need their own space, y'all. Because I don't think that's going to be it. All right. All right. So let's look at these two words here. Because I want to tell y'all something. Grace is often confused with a lot of other things that it actually is not. All right? Grace is often confused with mercy when being described. I heard mercy as one of the definitions. So let's look at these two definitions. Grace, H2580. And the word is cut off, the second letter, the second Hebrew letter is cut off on the screen a little bit. But that is a noon, a final noon, actually. And so it is kin, is het and noon, kin. And that word means favor, charm, elegance, acceptance. But favor, keep that word in mind, favor. When it comes to grace, a synonym is favor. What is mercy? Mercy is a completely different word, H2617. And that word is chesed, chesed. And chesed is goodness, kindness, or faithfulness. So mercy is goodness or kindness, going above and beyond, being good, being extra nice, extra kind. All right? So if we really look at this, favor actually is a great synonym. There's one other synonym, so I'm going to drag y'all into my world just for a quick second. Y'all going to get two drags into my world. One drag is not going to be that deep. But this one can be deep. Because this is the word goodwill. Anybody ever heard of goodwill? Everybody heard of goodwill. But does anybody know what goodwill is? So, goodwill in a business setting. Goodwill in a business setting actually is an intangible asset to a company. Okay? So a company has assets, right? Can somebody name some assets that a company might have? They might have cars. They might have homes. But we are talking about companies, so think about company stuff. Computers, phones, boats and yachts, buildings, right? The place where you go, the cubicle you sit in, all of these are assets of a company, right? These are assets of that company, things that the company owns that goes on that company's balance sheet, okay? One of the things that I'm gonna give y'all I didn't put this up here, so I didn't put this in my thing, so I'm gonna actually write this down. I told y'all I'm gonna drag y'all into my world just for a minute, y'all. Just for a minute, okay? Just for a minute. So, to make a balance sheet, you need three things. All right? Assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. Okay? Those are the three things you need to make a balance sheet. And what it is, depending on what order you're doing it, assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. All right? So, of course, you can switch them around and say, okay, well, if I move this over here, then, how do I get assets, or how do I get owner's equity, or how do I get liabilities? But assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. That's what you own. To make this very easy, if you own a house, that's the asset. If you have a mortgage on that house, that's the liability. If you've paid off half of the mortgage, then your house is worth $200,000. You owe $100,000. You have $100,000 owner's equity. Okay? That's very much how it works. All right, so now understanding that, assets is what we're talking about. Assets are usually stuff that you can grab, stuff that you can put your hands on. But there's sometimes you can't put your hands on it. Goodwill is one of those things. So I'm gonna read this out, and then I'll explain why I'm even talking like this. All right. Business goodwill is the value a company derives from its reputation, its brand, or its customer base, as well as its intellectual property. Intellectual property would be things like copyrights or trademarks and things like that. It's an intangible asset, can't touch it, meaning it's non-physical but has long-term value. It's worth something. Goodwill can give a company a competitive advantage and is often one reason why a company might pay more than the fair market value of another company when acquiring it. So if somebody says, hey, I'm going to buy, I don't know, I'm trying to think of, what's somebody named a ritzy restaurant? There you go, Ruth's Chris. All right. So Ruth's Chris is worth more than their buildings and their flatware and the food and their cooked stuff. Why? Because there's a certain thing you think about when you go to a Ruth's Chris. There's a certain way you feel about yourself when you go to a Ruth's Chris. So that there's goodwill there. If they were going to sell, or somebody was trying to buy Ruth's Chris as a company, they couldn't just pay what their assets are, and then whatever the combination of that owner's equity might be. That they couldn't just pay oh well, this is what you're worth. Let's minus out this. You're good to go. They couldn't pay that. Why? Because there's some goodwill there. There's a brand. There is a certain way that their customer base thinks about them. There's a reputation. That's goodwill. So goodwill is actually a great way to describe grace. Goodwill. Okay? Favor. Y'all remember what it was? Kin. Favor. Goodwill. Goodwill. It's beyond the tangible aspect. It's something that's a little bit deeper. So when you convert this to a person, when you have found favor in somebody else's eyes, that's the same thing as you having found grace in their eyes. Them showing grace to you means that you have goodwill with them. You have goodwill with them. It goes beyond the surface. It goes beyond, oh, that's just somebody I know. There is some goodwill involved there. So let's look at this and continue to break down these two things. Because one of the things I want to show you is that grace and mercy are not the same, and they are not opposite of each other in terms of their definition. They are a little different. They're just different. Opposites everything doesn't always, if it's not the same, it doesn't mean it's the opposite. Just a basic understanding. That's just in general. Blue is not the opposite of red. It's just a different color. All right? All right, so let's begin first with Genesis chapter 19, verses 18 and 19. And here's what I want y'all to do. I'm going to read the modern King James Version. I want somebody to get an NIV version. I want somebody to get an amplified version. And I want somebody to get the scriptures version. All right. So I'm going to read the modern King James Version, and it reads like this. And let me give just a little bit of background. Y'all know, just to let you know, I dropped you in the middle of the desert, so I'm going to tell you what's going on. Lot and his family have been taken out of Sodom and Gomorrah, and we know that before they were ever taken out, Yahweh negotiated with Abraham. And that negotiation looks something like this. You know, if you found 50 righteous, would you save the city? Yeah, okay, I'd do it for 50. Well, if there was 40, well, okay, I'd do it for 40, 45, 40, 30, 35. You know, he just kept going down. Finally, he said, if there were 10 righteous in the city, would you save the city? Would you not destroy the city for the sake of those 10? And his response was, yeah. So we know what happened. He destroyed the city. There was not 10 righteous. There was not 10 righteous there. All right? So now, understanding that, they are out, and he is now being directed by the messengers who got him out. All right? So Genesis chapter 19, verse 18. And Lot said to them, "Oh no, Lord, please, now your servant has found grace." There's one of our words. "In your sight, have found grace in your sight, and you have magnified your mercy, which you have shown to me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me and I die." Both words are used. If we look into Hebrew, both words are used. And so one form is used. He says, and you have magnified your grace is the second thing. The first thing is what? Your servant has found, mercy. Your servant has found grace in your sight. So now that we have a better definition of grace, when and how did Lot find grace with the Most High? When did he find grace with the Most High? Well, Abraham was in there negotiating, trying to get 10 what? Righteous. 10 righteous. He didn't find 10 righteous, but he did find at least one. And he showed that one mercy by saving his life. Y'all see that? Y'all. So who has another version? Because I want to explain why people are so confused. Why people are so confused by these two. Number one, because they done daggone made a song that said, "Your grace and mercy." So now we think it's the same thing. So who has a different? You got a different version from me? Okay, go right ahead. Tell us the version.
Genesis 19, 18 and 19, I have the Amplified.
All right.
Okay, and it reads, "But Lot said to them, 'Oh no, not that place, my lords. Please listen, your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have magnified your loving kindness, mercy, to me by saving my life, but I cannot escape to the mountains, because the disaster will overtake me and I will be killed."
All right, who has the other version? Lisa, get the mic. Mike.
I've got the NRSV, Sierra.
Okay.
And Lot said to them, "Oh no, my lords, your servant has found favor with you, and you have shown me great kindness in saving my life. But I cannot flee to the hills for fear the disaster will overtake me and I die."
That's a good version. It uses the definitions much better. Who has another version? NLT. All right.
New Living Translation.
Okay.
Says, "Oh my Lord, oh no, my Lord, Lot begged, you have been so gracious to me and saved my life, and you have shown such great kindness, but I cannot go to the mountains. Disaster would catch up to me there, and I would die, and I would soon die."
All right. And then the scripture says, and Lot said to them, "Oh no, And Lot said to them, "Oh no, Yahweh. Look, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have increased your loving commitment, which you have shown me by saving my life. But I am unable to escape to the mountains, lest calamity overtake me and I die." And so, if we look at how these two words are being used, we should learn something from this. The grace is applied to how he is perceived by Yahweh. Yahweh spared his life because he, Lot, stood out from everybody else. He did not act in the same way as everybody else. His relationship with Yahweh was different from everybody else. He had favor. All right? But he was there. He was there. And he was going to destroy everything and everybody. But the mercy that he had on Lot is what saved him. Instead of him allowing him to die with everybody else, he showed him mercy by warning him and having him to leave. So see, these are two different things. There was a kindness that he had toward him because of the favor. There was a kindness that he showed toward him, which means he let him off the hook with dying with everybody else. That was mercy. The reason he had the mercy is because of what? The favor that he had. So now the question is, why did he have the favor? We talk junk about Lot, but the scripture says that Lot was a righteous man. He was a righteous man in the midst of unrighteous people, but he himself, he was a little selfish, but he was a righteous man. So let's continue on. The dispensation of grace. Anybody ever heard of that? Apparently, that's where we are. Apparently, we live in the dispensation of grace. If you're a dispensationalist. And for some, they got it broken down so far where this is the 6th dispensation. Okay? For some, they just got it, 2 or 3. But we're going to read this. And we're going to talk a little bit about this. But I do have this little bit of a question for you. I got this little bit of a question for you. And I might have answered it already. I think I jumped ahead. I answered it a little bit. But the question was, what was grace for Lot? And then what was mercy for Lot? So I did explain it, but y'all can give it back to me. So what was the grace for Lot? It was the favor that he had with Yahweh, which allowed him to live, which was the mercy. The mercy allowed him to live, allowed him. Yahweh said, nah. It's very simple, y'all. It's very simple. We all go through the line at Zaxby's. And we all order a 5-piece chicken nugget, whatever. Zax snack. But, is that 3 tenders? See, the boy knows. We all order the 3 tenders Zax snack. But the person working behind the counter, that's my boy. We went to school together. So everybody else gonna get 3. I'm gonna get 5. That's favor. That is favor. Can we take that scenario and turn it to mercy? How can we take that scenario and turn it to mercy?
If you ain't having enough money to pay for food.
Great example. you didn't have enough money. That might fall into, that could kind of go either way. Let's make it even worse. Let's make it even worse. You didn't have enough money to pay for the food, so you took it. You tried to sneak out. You know, they called people food, and you just grabbed somebody else's and just went on. And then that person saw you and was like, hey, cuz, don't do that, man. Come on. Let me get that back. They had mercy on you because they didn't call the police and they didn't get you dealt with according to the law. That was mercy. There's a difference. It's a bit subtle, but when we look at it from the right lens, you can definitely see the difference. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of reading, and I'm going to do this reading as fast as I can because I want to get to the next slide, and I got about 5 minutes or so. So we're going to do this Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 through chapter 3, verse 12. And I tried to cut it down a little bit, but just could not. And I'm going to read this out of the modern King James Version. So either New King James or modern King James, if you got that for me, Lamar's. All right, so Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through chapter 3, verse 12. Okay, y'all with me? All right, let's roll. For by grace you are saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of Elohim. Not of works, lest anyone should boast, for we are his workmanship, created in Yeshua Messiah to good works, which Elohim has before ordained that we should walk in them. Therefore, remember that you, the nations, in time past were in the flesh, who were called uncircumcised by that which is called the circumcised, or the circumcision, in the flesh made by hands. And that at that time you were without Mashiach, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without Elohim in the world. But now in Yeshua Messiah, you who were once far off are made near by the blood of Messiah. For he is our peace, our shalom. He making us both one, and he has broken down the middle wall of partition between us, having abolished in his flesh the enmity. Y'all get that, right? He abolished the enmity. Now, open parentheses, the law of commandments contained in ordinances, close parentheses, which means we should be able to read that sentence without it. So that in himself he might make the two into one new man, making peace between them. So now I'm going to read it 15 and separate out that phrase, because that phrase is only there to explain something, not to be a part of the sentence. It's there to explain something, and then you continue the sentence. It's important because people read that together and they think he's destroying the enmity of the law of commandments. That's not a sentence. That's not the way it's written. Having abolished in his flesh the enmity, so that in himself he might make the two into one new man, making peace between them. Verse 16, and so that he might reconcile both to Elohim in one body by the cross, having slain the enmity in himself. And he came and preached peace to you who were afar off, and to those who were near, both. For through him we both have access by one Spirit to the Father. Now, therefore, you are no longer strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of Elohim. I'm absolutely positive if you don't want to be in the house, you are not considered fellow citizens. If you don't want to be a part of Israel, you are not of Israel. If you don't want to be, you don't have to be. That is very important to understand. Okay? If you don't want to be, you don't have to be. But if you desire to be, you can be. All right? That is so important to understand when you're reading this passage. People destroy this passage right here to represent grace versus the obedience of the law. Obedience to the law. All right, and 20. And are built upon the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, Yeshua Messiah himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom every building having been fitly framed together grows into a holy sanctuary in Yahweh, in whom you also are built together for a dwelling place of Elohim through the Spirit. For this cause I, Shaul, am the prisoner of Yeshua Messiah for you nations. All right. This is why, and remember, chapters don't exist the way we know them. That's the reason I had to start in the middle of the prior, because this is all one thought. If we started at 3 and 1, he was literally in the middle of a sentence. All right? And so, now understanding, Shaul is saying this, so this is why I am here for you nations. Verse 2, if you have heard the dispensation of the grace of Elohim, which is given to me toward you, that by revelation he made known to me the mystery, as I wrote before in few words, by which when you read, you may understand my knowledge in the mystery of Mashiach, which in other ages was not made known to the sons of men, as it is now revealed to his holy apostles and prophets by the Spirit, that the nations should be fellow heirs. We're right back to these who were not Israel being brought to become Israel, and of the same body, and partaker of the promise in Mashiach through the gospel. Through the gospel. Of this gospel, or the good news, I was made a minister according to the gift of the grace of Elohim. This was the favor that he had with Elohim to be able to bring this forth. And to me, and by effectual working of his power, this grace is given to me, this favor, this goodwill, this good thinking of toward me. And he says, who am less than the least of all saints. So he's recognizing this, not because of I'm so great, to preach the gospel of the unsearchable riches of Mashiach among the nations, and to bring to light what is the fellowship of the mystery which from eternity has been hidden in Elohim, who created all things by Yeshua Messiah, so that now to the rulers and the powers in the heavenlies might be known by the church the manifold wisdom of Elohim, according to the eternal purpose which he purposed in Yeshua Messiah, our Elohim, in whom we have boldness and access with confidence through his faith. We have access now. Didn't have access, now have access. And I'm going to bring this to a close with this one thing. And this is where we're going to start from next time, because I'm not going to have time to really dig into this like I want to. But we will start and touch on it. Y'all know I like math, so I'm bringing y'all into the next part of how my brain works. I like math, so things that aren't numbers. Now, I'm not like a crazy mathematician or anything, but numbers make sense. Logic makes sense to me in terms of numbers, okay? And so there's a very simple math logic approach or equation, and we use it all the time, just if then. If then. It's very, very, very simple. If then. And so if this, then that. If I need these things to be in that same equality, then I might have to make adjustments to the other side of this equation. Okay? So if 2 plus 1 equals 3. Then if I change the 1, I have to adjust either the 2 or the 3 to make up for that. Okay? That's it. It's just keeping everything in equality. All right, so now with that said, if sin, then. That's what we're going to do. If sin, then. And what I'm talking about here is if sin increases, then what happens to grace? Aha, there we go. I like it. All right, so now let's think about this. Let's think about this. If you use our kids. Let's use our kids. We like using our kids. Our kids always get used in messages, so hey. And I'm never talking about my actual kids. I'm just talking about kids in general, right? So, sin is what? First. Y'all see the little star there? Sin is transgression of the law according to 1 John chapter 3 verse 4. All right? Now with that understanding, if there's a law, let's just call that the rules of the house. If there are the rules of the house and I got 5 kids, everybody is called according to the same rules, right? Everybody's supposed to follow the same rules, right? That's how it's supposed to be. Everybody's supposed to follow the same rules. But let's point out one kid. If this one kid's sin, which is breaking of the house rules, increases, what happens to that child's favor with its parent? It decreases. Got that? See how that works? Because if you keep doing this, you're not in good favor with me. As a matter of fact, I got issues with you. All right? Now, what if that child's following of your house policies and your house rules is pristine and they're always going above and beyond? And so if the sin decreases, then what happens to the favor or the grace? Grace increases. Grace increases because they are in more favor with you. Now, do the same thing for mercy. When sin increases, so if a child goes from 0 sins to 1 sin, what happens to mercy? You got to have more mercy, right? Because you either are going to have no mercy or some mercy. It's just that simple. Do you have to have mercy if they're following the rules? No. That's how simple this is. You don't need mercy if they're following the rules. Shall we continue in sin that grace abounds? Let it not be. So if they are breaking the rule, now they're going to need some mercy in order to even think about being back where? In your good graces. See how that works? It's simple. It really is simple. I'm not going to go into the Matthew chapter 20 because that's where we're going to start next time. But I just wanted to kind of touch on that so that we can begin to get some understanding. So just think about this, that grace is more so a scenario where someone holds a special place in your heart, let's call it. Mercy is you having to give an exception to the rule for something that's done. So that doesn't usually make you happy, or that doesn't usually put them in better standing with you. But grace is totally different. Grace is totally different from mercy. And so we're gonna stop there because again, I wanna take more time to go through this in conjunction with the dispensation of grace, because we're gonna go back to that to explain what this fallacy that people are teaching, that we're no longer under the law, but now we're under grace. That's what we're going to deal with on next time. Hallelujah. Praise God. Any questions? Any comments?
So, oh yes, I enjoyed the teaching. Let me say that first.
Praise God.
Okay, so you said the end to sort of, I guess, put it elementary. Hold grace is when you hold a special place in someone's heart and heart. Mercy, however, is making an exception to put you back into good grace. So when we say, "Oh, give thanks unto Yah, His mercy endures forever," does that mean He's forever making exception? Or I understand you said that if we're walking in good grace, then we don't need mercy. If we're walking in good grace, maybe, or if we are following the rules, we don't need mercy.
Right.
So, of course, if we're following the rules, we don't need mercy.
Right.
So if mercy is making the exception to me in the event that I fall off or break the rule, then is it mercy? You make the exception. So when you make the exception, okay, grace would be, I guess, if I'm dealing with my child. If you do this, I'm taking your phone.
Yeah.
But if this is a child that whatever, let's say I decide I'm gonna have mercy on you today, so I'm not gonna take your phone. So it's like grace covers you in the event that I give you mercy.
No. So grace is you are usually on top of your game, and I usually don't have to worry about you.
Gotcha.
Because you have favor with me, I'm not going to react to you the same way that I would somebody else.
Okay.
This is nothing new for you. We always going through this.
Right.
And so you don't have grace. You don't have favor with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mercy might look a lot different for you than for you.
Okay. I guess, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to understand because I just think about all the things that we say like that, or even, Lord have mercy upon us. Okay.
Yeah.
So, since that's an exception, or like, what does the scripture say? His anger is for a moment, but his mercy is for it. Okay. I don't know. I guess maybe I have to put it. I understand. It was a great teaching. I get it. But I guess there's those little things. It's like, okay, so if that is making an exception, then that puts me back into good grace. Then, what does that mean? Then what does that scripture mean when it says His mercy endures forever? What does that mean?
So, Dad, you going toward where we going toward?
Oh, okay. Well, we'll wait.
So
okay, I didn't know.
Where we going? I'll give you a little bit.
Okay.
So 1 John chapter 2 verse 1. Somebody read that. 1 John chapter 2 verse 1.